Welcome back to the Content Swap Podcast. You are joined by Parker and
Aaliyah.
And if you're new to the Content Swap Podcast, this is a podcast in which we swap a piece of content at the end of each week with one another. We then have the week to engage with that content, and then during the episode, we recount the tale of our experience with that piece of content, and then we swap again at the end of the episode, and then we do it all again. And so if you're, that's it. So thank you for joining us. We've got a very special Barbenheimer themed episode for you this week, and we are looking forward to getting into this week's pieces of content for the swappage. Mm-hmm. And before we do, we like to provide a little news update on just life in general. Before we get started, you can feel free to skip ahead. I've put the timestamps for each of the pieces of content in the description. Mm-hmm. It should be easy to find if you are on YouTube scrubbing through the video. I don't know why I said it like that. Scrubbing. Anyway, so would you like to get us started with a little update? How's life? What's going on?
Yeah. So not much is going on as per usual. However, something that I am really excited about is that we started Jujutsu Kaisen. And
Season 2.
Yeah, so far I love it. I'm very excited about it. I can't wait to see more. I did not realize it was going to be more of like a prequel of like Gojo and Geto.
Do you want to describe what Jujutsu Kaisen is for those that might be listening to this section? Like, what the heck are they talking about?
Of course. So Jujutsu Kaisen is an anime series basically about these like high schoolers who have like cursed energy, which means that they have these like powers to defeat other cursed spirits.
Curses.
Yeah, to like exorcise those cursed things. And so that's what they do. But I will say a caveat, there is one character who does not have cursed energy, but she has like these special glasses that allow her to see the curses like everyone else can who has this energy. But she has cursed weapons, or like cursed energy and weapons.
So basically, it's an anime show about high schoolers with the ability to see curses. Ghosts.
Yeah, essentially.
And they have their own special powers through whatever reasons.
Yeah.
To take down those ghosts.
Yeah.
By themselves.
Exactly. Yes.
And it's not dumb. It's good.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's so good, and all the characters are so lovable. And like even the villains, I'm like, ooh, they're great. Like they're so great.
Yeah. And all of these high schoolers have a teacher named Gojo who it's this guy that usually wears a blindfold or he has glasses. He's got this like white hair and these amazing blue eyes. I mean,
he's
You
wonderful.
gotta look at those eyes.
Wonderful. Love that man.
Yeah. So for this to be a kind of it's a season 2, but I believe the first half of season 2 is serving as a prequel covering Gojo, that teacher's story of his time in high school. Yeah. So we get to dive a little bit more into that, which is really cool because he's like a lot of people's favorite character.
Yeah. I am so excited about it because of that reason. So I mean, he's like one of my favorite anime characters of all the shows that I've seen. Yeah. But also, so, I mean, I guess it's not a spoiler, but like in the first season, Geto, or however you say his name, is the villain, or like one of the villains. And in the movie, you kind of learn that they were once friends. Like they went to school together at like the Jujutsu Kaisen school, whatever it's called.
Jujutsu Kaisen School for Witchcraft and Wizardry.
Whatever it's called. And like when I tell you, he is one of my favorite villains ever. First of all, just like both him and Gojo are just very attractive men. Like they're just like the way they carry themselves is just so amazing. And so like to now see like where that all started, and like they're very similar to how they are present day, but
yeah, you've got like the main good guy, or at least the most powerful good guy, the main bad guy.
Yeah.
That are established from the first season.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, let's learn about what it was like for them.
Yeah.
In high school,
and learn their villain origin.
BFFs.
Yeah. And learn Geto's like villain origin story.
Yeah.
Ooh, exciting.
I heard it's going to be pretty good.
Oh, I believe it. I had no doubt. You had doubts. I had no doubts.
Whatever.
You were like, all the anime last episode. I want to
rewind.
Last
episode,
I want to rewind. You're like, last episode, you were like, it's all looking the same, and it's Mappa, like it's great animation, but it's all blending. When we saw that first episode, I was
this
like,
morning.
Stylistically, this is different.
I'm not gonna lie, watching it this morning, I was finally feeling excited to be watching Jujutsu Kaisen. I was like, I've always watched it knowing like, oh, this is supposed to be good, and I kind of had my doubts, and I didn't really like, I don't know, I guess I just wasn't like bought into it fully.
Yeah.
But when we watched it this morning, I was like, oh, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing right now. This is great. Like, I wish we had more than 2 episodes out right now. I'd watch all of this right now.
I know. It makes me sad that there's only 2 episodes. I knew. I had faith in my show. I was like, this is the best show ever.
The best show ever.
In my opinion. And I know, especially they took their time coming out with it, you know. They took the time they needed. And it's chef's kiss so far.
All right. I mean, I don't disagree. I think definitely after watching this and enjoying it this morning, I'm really doubling down on everything that I said about Chainsaw Man last week. It made me reflect on watching a bit of Chainsaw Man, and I'm just like, that show just sucks. So I shouldn't say it like that.
You don't like the show.
It doesn't suck. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
I cannot get into it, and I think I've just aged out of being the target market for something like Chainsaw Man. I mean, there's other anime I've watched that's like definitely stupid that I am a grown adult and enjoy, but like Chainsaw Man just feels like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's for me. It feels like it should be for me, but it's, I don't know. I feel like it's meant for a less mature audience. If you watched it, you might kind of get a sense of like what the heck I'm talking about.
I probably won't after you've said all this negative stuff about
it. Well, this isn't really a spoiler, so I'll just give it's a little inappropriate though, so for any younger listeners, maybe watch out. But the primary motivation of the main character in Chainsaw Man is that like he's always been poor. He's never like had anything, and he's been so poor to the point where he's had to like sell some of his organs in order to like make money to keep living and stuff. And eventually, you know, he gets like, through some weird circumstances, he gets like the ability to turn into a man that's a bunch of chainsaws, which sounds dumb. But his primary motivation from that point on is that this like secret society of devil hunters, which sounds a lot like secret society of jujutsu sorcerers. But this like secret society of devil hunters take him in, and the like main boss lady is this like young attractive female that's like paying attention to him and like, you know, saying like, oh, I need you to go do this. And he's never had female attention before, so he's like, oh my god, I will do whatever she says. And she basically like takes advantage of that and tells him like, if you kill this like big bad gun devil, then I will let you sleep with me. And he's like, OMG, I've like the affection of a woman, I need that so bad. And so that's like his whole motivation to do literally anything in the show, is so that he can sleep with the boss. And I'm like, that's not,
I'm uninterested.
Exactly. I'm like, I've aged out of being remotely interested in that, because if I as a 29-year-old male, if I go telling people like, oh yeah, you gotta watch Chainsaw Man, like, oh yeah, the main character, he just wants, Like, no. I'm just not into that. That to me feels like one of those things where I can't recommend to people. Like when people discount anime as like something that they should enjoy at all, the last thing I would recommend is Chainsaw Man, because it's going to give you the worst impression of what like watching anime is like. And that's what I don't like about it. Because there's so much good anime out there.
What is your, like, someone who has never seen anime in their life is curious about it, what is the anime that you recommend? Like pick one anime that you would like recommend.
I was gonna say, well, I guess I'd probably just go with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, just because it's the best one. It's still a little anime-esque, but as a story, it's just incredibly enthralling. It's very well told. There's lots of like mysteries. There's just a lot to dive into there. I was gonna say Cowboy Bebop, but like even people I know that like watching anime don't end up liking Cowboy Bebop, such as yourself, which is the only reason that I would say like maybe not Cowboy Bebop. Though I do think Cowboy Bebop technically would be like the best one for if you can get into, like, if you can enjoy it, then, or deal with it being a little slow, then I do think Cowboy Bebop would be the one. So sorry, I ended up saying two. You said one, but
that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I would say. There's another one, but I'll save that. But it's on the list. I know. Yeah. It's on the list of things to assign, and you'll get that at some point.
Got you.
Yeah. But I will, like, watching Jujutsu Kaisen after this whole conversation we had last week, and then watching Jujutsu Kaisen this morning, I was like, ooh, I feel like watching anime. And that was kind of nice. I haven't felt like watching anime in a while. You put like some random anime on, which
yeah,
I was honestly like,
I don't even remember what it was called.
Yeah, I was honestly like, hey, this kind of seems somewhat interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting.
But then I ended up just putting One Piece on because, yeah, I mean, I've been watching One Piece. I'm like, oh yeah, anime. It's been like, I haven't been watching a lot of anime, as if I haven't watched like 600 episodes of One Piece in the last 2 years. Yeah. But you know, whatever.
I get what you mean.
It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about assigning an anime to you soon because of this conversation. And, you know, it's like anime, some of the anime that I have left to assign you, I've been hesitant to assign because you don't always end up, you know, sticking with some of them. And it's like, if I sit and rewatch some of these initial episodes, I'm going to want to sit and watch the whole thing.
Well, what's stopping you from doing it?
I would just hope that you would also want to watch the whole thing. I felt that way about like Hunter x Hunter, but we just didn't end up keep watching it.
Yeah.
But I would like, if we did the episode and you were like, oh yeah, I really did like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, for example. Then I'd be like, oh, sweet, cool. Like, she's finally going to have her experience watching Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And then I would not want to sit and watch it by myself because I would hope that we would sit and watch it together. But then if we never end up watching it together, then I'm going to be bummed. You know?
I'm sorry. I mean, don't hold your breath. I feel like anime is like, as much as I love it, I have to love it to stick with it. Otherwise, it'll become every once in a while, I'm like, I forgot about this show. Let me put it on. Like, let me watch some more episodes that I haven't seen. So, yeah, I think that's why it's like, don't count on me, like, to want to fully watch something, especially because usually there's so many seasons that are already out, and then I'm like overwhelmed because I'm like, well, there's so much to get through, and there's so many other things that I'm more interested in. And
the other shows that I have to give you, I would say like 2 of them are in the 60 episode range. Like there's 60 episodes and that's it. They're done. Yeah. You know, they're completed. And then there's another one that's like 25 episodes that's done and completed. And yeah, I mean, those are the, I'm not going to name them all, but, or I could. It would be Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Monster, and Steins Gate. and they're all really, really good. And I've only watched Monster and Steins Gate once, so if we sat down to watch them, I'd be very inclined to like want to finish that so that I could watch them again for the first time, or watch them again. Yeah. Have my first rewatch.
Yeah.
Full Metal Alchemist I've seen twice, so I'd be a little less bummed if you stop. Well, I mean, it's just my favorite anime, so I'd be bummed just for that reason alone. But yeah.
The only anime that I've sat and just watched like constantly is Attack on Titan and Death Note. Death Note, I like finished that thing probably within a week. But also I feel like when I watched those were at periods of time where I had like nothing else going on.
Yeah, totally.
So like, and it was all during like we watched Attack on Titan during the pandemic.
Yep.
We were just home all the time. And then Death Note was right before I moved. And so I had like a period where school was over. I had graduated.
Right.
It's summertime, but like, and then I went on a whole road trip. So I just like watched it while I was on the road trip. So yeah, it's hard for me to stay with it.
I understand. Well, one of those three things is going to get assigned to you probably in the next month. So
yeah, sounds good.
Look forward to that.
Alrighty.
And, fingers crossed that she sticks with them.
Yep. I'll get back to it eventually. They'll get finished at some point.
Okay. I did sit and watch some Cowboy Bebop like a month and a half ago without you.
When you assigned me Samurai Champloo,
you did watch some of that.
I continued to watch that. I think I didn't watch like 2 episodes.
What do you mean?
There's like only 2 episodes that I haven't seen.
You've seen 23 episodes of Samurai Champloo?
Okay. I had them on in the background.
Yeah, because I remember you playing them in the background, and you got to like episode 10 from what I remember.
Really?
Yeah.
Dang, I thought I saw more than that. Oops.
Well, doesn't count.
Sorry.
Well, Samurai Champloo is one that you can watch in the background. That's fine.
Yeah.
But like Full Metal Alchemist, it's like everything is important. So you got to really sit and watch that,
Gotcha. All right. Well, what's new with you?
I finished Zelda, finally. Last episode, I said I think I had like 5 hours left. And I finished it that night. It was an incredible experience. I'm intending to write a review or post a review. I've kind of got most of a review written. I'm intending to post a review once I just sit and finish it. It was great. It was fantastic. I mean, it really is one of the best games ever made. Upon further reflection, it would be as it's a new Zelda game with all these new mechanics and stuff. It's very easy to fall into the trappings of saying like, it has to be one of the best games ever made. But now that I've like played a ton of it, and I've played some other games in between while playing it, and then gone back to playing it, yada yada yada, and then finally finished it, I'm like, okay, I can for sure say that this is easily one of the greatest games ever made. And that's dope.
Nice.
Love that. I love getting new games that feel like, one of the best ever made. So I'm here for that. So I finished that. I went back to Final Fantasy 16. I'm finally, I think, at a point in the story of Final Fantasy 16 where I'm like in it now. I was like in it at the very beginning, and then I was a little let down by how slow paced things got after that. There was still like some big stuff happening, but all the in between stuff, as I mentioned, was really just bumming me out. I was kind of getting bored, which I don't like. If I'm going to be sitting playing something that takes 30 plus hours of my time, I don't want to have moments where I'm feeling like that bored. But I think those like slow moments maybe still happen from time to time, maybe not quite to the degree, but I think I'm far enough in the story to where everything now I'm like in the world, everything seems like more important because it's serving the story a bit more, and things are just at a more intense place, which just makes, every little thing inherently a bit more interesting. So I'm actually very content with the experience right now. I can't wait to keep playing that. Can't wait to keep playing more of that. I think by the end of it, I feel like by the end of it, I will walk away from the experience feeling like, that was a good game.
Nice.
Whereas maybe 5 or 6 hours ago in my playthrough, I would have had my doubts about that. So happy to be reassured. And then I picked up, because now I need a Switch game to play now that Zelda's done. The next game that I intended to play was Pikmin 4, and that comes out in, I think, a week. And they re-released Pikmin 1 and 2 on the Switch during the last Nintendo Direct to get people hyped up for Pikmin 4. And I played Pikmin 1 and 2 on the GameCube back in the day, and the GameCube era is kind of like, it holds a very special place in my heart. Like, Pikmin 1 came out when the GameCube came out. So, like, one of the best Christmases I ever had, second grade, we got the GameCube, and we had Super Smash Bros. Melee, Luigi's Mansion, and Pikmin. And those 3 games, like, just as a trifecta, just make me feel all kinds of warm, fuzzy things of childhood. And I think the beauty of playing Pikmin again, I bought it this morning and I played for, I don't know, maybe an hour. The beauty of it is that it's really short, and it is like really well made, and I've played it a bunch of times. So I know that, like, if I sit down and play it like on a random Sunday and I've got nothing else to do, I will finish it that day. It's that short. It's maybe like 5 hours. And it's a great game. And Pikmin 2 expands on it and is great. And I've never even played Pikmin 3, and I'm planning on playing Pikmin 4. So I'm kind of like, I bought Pikmin 1 and 2 because it was a better deal, and I knew I was going to want to play Pikmin 2 eventually, if not right now. But now I'm kind of like, should I just do that thing that I do where I replay everything in a series? Especially given that I just played Zelda for 150 hours, I feel like I could play Pikmin in a much shorter amount of time. Like, Pikmin 1 is maybe 5 hours. Pikmin 2 is maybe 10 hours. 15 hours of gameplay can be finished pretty quickly. Pikmin 3 maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 hours. I'm not sure. But I think it's either I'm just going to play Pikmin 1 and then go straight to Pikmin 4, or I'm going to play all of them. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But I'm just kind of like, now that Zelda's done, I'm just like, hey, what's the rush on anything? So, just really wanted to get Zelda done. And I'm happy to be living in a post Zelda playing world now. Things feel a little less, I don't know. Just that craving to be playing video games is a bit less, and I think I needed that. I'm still thinking about games, clearly, but it's just kind of nice to not be playing that anymore, despite it being, fantastic. It's like a drug, it got so addicting. I'm just glad it's over. Yeah. All right, that was a lot from me. Looking forward to the future of games. Anyway, so now should we get into the assignments? Mm-hmm. All right. Hunker down, because you are in for a wild ride. So we are getting into the Barbie related assignment for this week, which was Spice World. As you've said in the past, or last week, in the past, as you said, you already gave me Life Size. That was the Barbie related thing that you did have. So you went with Spice World because, did you say that there were Spice Girls Barbies back in the day?
There were. I have a picture if you'd like to see them.
Yeah, I would love to see that.
Yeah. So we had my sister. So my sister is 8 years older than me. I was born in 96. So I was born at the tail end of the 90s. But honestly, like the Spice Girls, and I'll get into a history of like the Spice Girls career. They started in 1994. So yeah, I mean, I was very young, but anyway, like I said, my sister's 8 years older than me. She was very into Spice Girls. And so we had this is on eBay. We had the whole set
Oh my gosh.
of Spice Girls dolls. And you can swipe to see kind of like what they look like.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Scary Spice has the animal print.
Yep.
Posh has her just small black dress.
Yep.
Wow.
And I loved these dolls. They were like the greatest things ever. I didn't really play with Barbies, so this was like, yeah, these were my go-to. These, and then eventually I got into Bratz.
Naturally.
Yeah, and so it's just, I love the Spice Girls. They have a special place in my heart.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with the Spice Girls, they're a British pop all-female group.
Yeah. It cracks me up. You were like, they're British? I was like, yes.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I just didn't know that they were British.
Yeah.
I didn't really know a whole lot about the Spice Girls. I knew about the Spice Girls growing up.
Yeah.
And I knew, I especially know like I'll tell you what you want. Wait, I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. Yeah. Like I know everybody knows that song.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't really know a lot about Spice Girls. So Spice World is a film that was made in 1997. You say that they started in 1994, their career. Mm-hmm. So the film was made 3 years into their career. It follows the lives of the Spice Girls as they are, as a phenomenon. And the movie is literally just like they navigate being a sensation and performing shows, and that's it. There's Ginger Spice, Scary Spice, Baby Spice, Sporty Spice, and Posh. They travel around in their massive tour bus, which is basically like a big British flag on the side, and on the top it says Spice, and the inside of it is impossibly huge and like square.
Yeah.
Like it's like a square shape that then they all live in this massive space.
Yeah.
But it's apparently inside of this rectangular tour bus, which that doesn't make sense. But they basically live in what I equated to being like a space station, and they all
it's very Xenon.
Yeah, and they all have their own sections. It almost feels like a zoo. It's strange, And so they show up to different places and they do something like perform at that place, or they learn how to dance, or they get their photos taken. And every time they go to one of these places, they have a moment where they go, all right, enough of this, let's just do our own thing. And then they proceed to do whatever that thing that they were already doing before, but in their own little Spice Girls way, which I guess is like just not caring and doing whatever comes to mind. And it's literally just that over and over and over. And they're such a sensation that the tabloids are basically trying to dig up any dirt that they can get on them. So these guys that run a tabloid magazine hire this photographer that can get into basically anywhere at any time, and anything that they say throughout the movie, that like anything that the Spice Girls say throughout the movie that could be spun in a way that sounds in any way controversial, this guy basically takes that and he spins it out of context, trying to make them look bad, which never really ends up being that much of a problem. They also have a tour manager who is constantly stressed out, trying to get everything to work, and he's always reporting to his boss, and his boss is played by Roger Moore, and he's just petting a pig the whole time. Roger Moore, I point out Roger Moore because he used to play James Bond for like a ton of Bond movies. So seeing him in this movie was like, yes, that's one for the Britishness of this movie. There's just a lot of British actors in this movie, some of which are making cameos, some of which are just not famous yet, and they have like small roles in this movie. But I have a list of those people. We have Elton John, Jason Fleming, he's an actor, Hugh Laurie, he played House. Meatloaf is the guy driving their bus. That's weird. He's not even British. Richard E. Grant plays their manager. Roger Moore plays the manager's boss. Alan Cumming. Bob Hoskins. Bob Hoskins. What was Bob Hoskins doing in this movie?
So from what I was reading in all of like the facts about these cameos, they either, like, a lot of these folks either did it because they're friends with the Spice Girls. They're in it, like Elton John, you know, he's in the entertainment business as well. Yeah. Friends with the Spice Girls. But a lot of the actors are like, I did it because, like, my nieces and nephews love the, like, Spice Girls. Why wouldn't I? Like, this is an opportunity to get their autographs for them. Like,
all right.
Uncle of the year or whatever, you know?
Fair enough. And the only other person to point out would be Dominic West, who I think plays the main character in The Wire. He is their photographer in one scene. So, yeah, they also have a friend who's pregnant. She's not in the Spice Girls, but she's like BFFs with the Spice Girls. And she's pregnant, and at one point in the story, if there is a story, they get so mad at their manager that they consider quitting. But they're supposed to be playing a show like tomorrow night. And the night before the show, they go to a club with that friend who's pregnant. But then it's like, oh no, the baby's on the way. And so then they go to the hospital. And then they're there like all night. And then the baby's born. And then they're like, all right, you know what, whatever, let's go perform. And that's it. It's the whole movie. Every few scenes, the movie will have a little bit of fun and play with different genres. Like there's a scene where it's like a horror movie for a brief second, or it's like a sci-fi movie where like there's literally a scene where none of the bathrooms on their tour bus work. Their space station tour bus, no working bathrooms. They have to go into the middle of the woods to go use the bathroom, and while they're in the woods, a UFO comes down with aliens on it. And the aliens start talking to them and they're like, oh my gosh, are you the Spice Girls? Like, we want your autograph. Can we get tickets to your new show? And they're like, oh, I think they're all sold out, love. And they're like, dang it, I knew we should have gotten them early. And it's like, what is going on right now? Am I still watching the Spice Girls movie?
Yeah. It's just pure chaos.
Yeah. It's like, I get it, you know?
Yeah.
You got one chance to make this movie, and what are people going to want? They're just going to want to have fun with the Spice Girls. There doesn't need to be that much of a story, and may as well just throw everything into it, right? So that's the whole movie. I think I did a fantastic job describing it.
Yeah. The one part that you missed is throughout the movie, there's these two men who are pitching the idea for Spice Girls movie.
Oh, I forgot about that.
And at the very end, we realized the guy pitched exactly everything that we just watched. And so I think that's also like, it's supposed to be like the humor of like why all these random weird things happen, like why they encountered aliens. And it's like, oh, this guy was just like creating a story about the Spice Girls, and this is what he came up with, and this is what we watched. So yeah.
Nice. I realized that's the end of my notes. It's everything.
So what are your thoughts?
Okay, so my thoughts on this movie are that, I mean, if the question is like, did I like it? I mean, yes, I enjoyed it. I'm never going to watch it again, probably, unless like, if we have daughters and they decide to, dive into the old world of Spice Girls, which we grew up with, which I don't know. I kind of have my doubts that they will, but it'd be kind of cool if they did. Then that would be like the only time I would plan to rewatch this. I mean, it is kind of like a load of nonsense, and but like that's fun I think as a cultural, as a pop cultural moment. I'm very glad that I watched this movie because it just speaks to. It's just so, I say this all the time, it's just of the time, and that's like what's so fun about it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's got this whole like girl power thing. It's very British. It's very 90s. It's very just like pop group. Like, you know, if you grew up in the 90s with like boy bands like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, or like Britney Spears and all of that. Like, it's just all of that as a movie.
Yeah.
And it's just capturing that. And so I appreciate it for that reason. And I think it's kind of incredible that we watched it on archive.org of all places. Like, we could not find this streaming anywhere.
Nowhere.
And when I finally Googled the right thing, like watch Spice World online or something, an archive.org link came up. And I would not have known that like archive.org was legit unless I had, when I took film classes in high school, like we were instructed to like for a found footage project, which is like, you know, found footage is just really old footage that's in the public domain that you can use for whatever project that you want. That was my first experience with archive.org. So to revisit archive.org like 12 years later, and it's for Spice World. Yeah. Amazing.
It's a piece of history.
It's a piece of history. Like, what up? That is amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I was like, I wasn't sure to assign it, because I was like, I've looked for this movie before and it is impossible to find. And like on Amazon you can buy it, but it's kind of like sketchy, like, you know, how you buy it. So I was like, I don't even know if we'll be able to see this. And so I'm very glad we found it on that website. Yeah.
For it to be on archive.org is the most like legally free thing.
Yeah.
Like, it could have been on YouTube in like 480p and it would have felt like, oh, are we technically allowed to watch this? But if it's on archive.org in, I think it's in like 720p, then that's like, hey, this is very legal right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
Don't have a ton else to say.
That's fair. That's fair. There's not much to this movie. Well, I can get into a little bit of facts. So first, some things about, first, one thing that I want to point out, and something that I love about this movie, and just like the Spice Girls overall, like you mentioned, they were like the essence of girl power, and like empowering women, empowering young girls. I literally think of like in The Intern that we watched last week, of like when Anne Hathaway was like, you know, I feel bad for like men nowadays. Like, I grew up in the girl power like era where it was like women can be anything, you can do what you want, like the sky's the limit. And like she was like, I feel like men kind of got left behind. I don't know if I fully agree with that, but
I don't know if I fully agree with that.
I understand what she was saying, but like honestly, like I feel like I grew up in a time like that, like a girl power, where you had these like positive female role models, or like these women who exhibited all different kinds of personalities, like sporty, like Scary Spice, which like sometimes it's
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Sometimes I feel like Mel B gets very stereotyped, especially in this movie, which is not the best, but she was my favorite. I was like, a black woman, yay, this is awesome, you know? And so, I don't know, there's just like so many great messages that they provide. And in this movie, something that I think is so funny and like just like is a testament to like their feminism is like the way they treat the men like that they come across.
Oh, they're like, boys, like we don't need those.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're like there's a part where they're rehearsing and like one of the guys like hits the wrong note and they're like, hey, like what's up, like, you know, come on. And he's just like, I'm so sorry. But it's just like they hold men to a high standard in like their interactions throughout the movie, which I love, because it's like men should be held to a high standard. And like
because women are being held to a high standard.
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, they just like, if they don't feel like doing something, like if they feel a certain way, they're like, my voice will be heard and you will respect it and we will go do what we want to do. And like, you cannot sit here and like tell me what to do and how to live my life. And so I just love the way. And they treat the women in the movie like queens. I mean, granted, there's like really one woman they interact with, aside from the woman who like helps their manager or whatever.
Right.
But you know, like the way that they treat her is like, we will drop everything for you. Like, we will be here for you. We have your back. Like, you're our sister, you know, like that kind of thing. So I really appreciate that aspect of the film. It's nice to see.
I totally get that. So I have questions about Spice Girls.
Okay.
In general.
Well, maybe let me give my history of them and see if you still have those questions.
Well, okay. Well, can I describe what some of those questions are, and
Sure.
then we'll see if they get answered in the history?
Yeah.
So, like, I have questions like, is there, like, I don't know, a Spice Girls lore that I need to be up on? Like, they don't introduce this manager. It's just like, he's the manager. Or, like, you know, is there... And this friend that they have, she's just, like, there. And she's like, hey, it's me, your friend. Is there any kind of story or narrative that existed within the Spice Girls phenomenon prior to the movie coming out, to where it's like, if you had been following it and you see the movie, you're like, oh, there's the manager, or there's that girl that's their friend.
I think those are just for the movie, just to have. However,
disappointing.
I will say though, this whole idea of like them not wanting to do like what they don't want to do, I think that is prevalent in the way that they handled their career. And I can get to that in a minute.
It felt to me like I was watching the movie of like a show.
Yeah.
You know, the show's been running for 3 seasons and then they made a movie, you know. That's what it felt like. But
yeah.
Like I'm watching the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody movie or something.
Understandable.
Or the Even Stevens movie. That's what it felt
great
like.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Go ahead.
So some facts about the movie. Apparently the movie broke the record for the highest ever weekend debut for Super Bowl weekend, with a box office sales of 10.5 million.
I mean, for that time, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Given the girls' tight schedule, because they're, you know, rock stars, they only had 2 months to film this movie, which you can tell. You can tell they're on a time crunch and kind of filming everything they can with not even changing the outfits. Different scenes where they're wearing the same outfit. Yeah. And so then like the last fact I have about the movie is that on July 14th, 2014, the original bus that was used in the movie was placed on permanent display at Island Harbor Marina on the Isle of Wight, England.
Wow.
I'm like, I need to go see that bus.
That's pretty cool. Because when I saw the bus, I was like, that is the most proudly British bus I've ever seen in my life.
The most British bus.
Yeah.
And I love it. The big spice on the top, like, love that. And like one of the most iconic outfits any of the Spice Girls has ever worn is when Ginger Spice or Jerry wore the British flag. It was like a little dress that was just like the British flag. Right. And it's like the most iconic outfit ever. Love it. So getting into their career, a little background on their career, which I actually didn't know this stuff. Again, I was very young when the Spice Girls were at their peak, so I didn't know any of this. But the Spice Girls came together in 1994 when they each individually auditioned for this, like, there was an ad in the newspaper for something called The Stage, where like young girls could audition to be a part of a band, basically, kind of like X Factor.
Okay.
And 400 girls auditioned. So a few of the girls were chosen. Basically, it was Ginger, Posh, Scary, and Sporty Spice that were paired together with another girl, but it wasn't Baby Spice, Emma. It wasn't Emma. It was some other girl.
Okay.
And eventually Emma joined them a bit later and replaced the other girl. And so they were created into this band called Touch at first. Eventually they changed their names to Spice Girls. But they were basically like trained to be this pop group. again, like X Factor, kind of like One Direction's story.
Yeah.
And so they lived in the same house. They would practice together. They formed the band, and they were signed to Heart Management. That was the, I guess, the label that was creating this band.
Okay.
In 1995, they left Heart Management because Heart Management wasn't listening to any of their ideas. They wanted to do things their way. And so they were like, we'll go somewhere else and we'll do what we want to do.
Hey, good for them.
Yeah. So that year they ended up signing with Virgin Records.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then a year after, they released their debut single, Wannabe, which is the song that you know.
Oh. Okay. Never knew that's what that song was called.
Yeah, because it's like, if you want to be my lover.
Oh,
yeah.
Gotcha. I wonder how many streams that has on Spotify.
Probably a lot, because when they released it in the UK in 1996, it was an instant success, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
It's an anthem. A year later, it was released in the US and debuted as number 11 on the Hot 100 chart, and eventually reached number 1 in 4 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a hit internationally.
Clearly.
Yeah. So that kind of is what started their career and really, really launched it. So in 1998, Jerry, who plays, I act like they're characters. Jerry, who is Ginger Spice.
Plays herself.
I know. Jerry, who is Ginger Spice, left the band in 1998.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
Did not know that.
Yeah. And so at first she said that it was due to creative differences, but later came out to say that she was just exhausted and like disillusioned.
Oh, good for her then.
Yeah, it was just a lot. And so kind of right after she left, they started to like pursue solo careers, but they didn't break up. Like they kind of made it clear, like, we're not breaking up. We're just like seeing the other avenues, you know?
So are they, to this day, still the Spice Girls? Are the Spice Girls broken up yet?
So just wait.
Okay.
So they pursued solo careers, came back together, the 4 that are remaining, came back together in 1999 to do a UK tour. And they had released 2 albums by this point. In 2000, they released their 3rd and final album.
Wow.
By the end of that year, by the end of 2000, they announced a hiatus, but again clarified, we're not splitting up. We're just going on hiatus and pursuing our solo careers.
Okay.
Now, I didn't take notes on this, but eventually they do come in 2007. They come back together.
You mean to tell me that in 2006, mm-hmm. I could have been like, the Spice Girls haven't made anything in 6 years, but they haven't broken up?
Right. They never broke up officially. Gotcha. And so they come back together. And I want to say, and this is what I was telling you, I was like, I think that moment, like that year was when they came back together and performed at like the opening ceremony of the Olympics or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because I remember that performance, because it was like, it's the Spice Girls. What the heck? Like, they're back. Like, they're together.
Yeah.
And it seems like, from what I was reading in the notes, they kind of like, they come back together for like, you know, a big performance, a reunion performance or whatever. They tour with the idea of doing like a reunion tour. Victoria decides she doesn't want to be a part of that.
I'm surprised she stuck around for so long, because she was barely in this movie.
I know, we were like, does she sing?
Yeah.
Like, is she?
Victoria,
but she did try to pursue her own solo career, so she does sing.
Victoria is posh.
Yeah.
And her whole thing is that she just wears like the same outfit and is just trying to look good all the time.
Yeah. She's very,
and she just doesn't look like she wants to be there ever.
I know, her energy is like, I'm too cool to do this, so I'll just sit here until I'm needed, like, to perform.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, for a few years in the past few years, I don't know where they really landed in terms of like doing a reunion tour and everything. I like stopped really looking at the notes by then. But I mean, it seems like they all have really good relationships with each other. They never like fell out with each other, it doesn't seem. Like, I think Victoria and Mel B is like Mel C's like child's godmother or something like that, you know? So
But yeah, I mean, what are they all doing now, though?
Glad you asked.
Oh, wow.
I took notes. So here's the rundown on what they've been up to. So Jerry, or Ginger Spice, is a bikini designer. She also judged Australia's Got Talent and X Factor, and she's written a few children's books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Victoria, which we probably all keep up with the most, is married to David Beckham.
What?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, it all makes sense now.
Yep.
What?
Yeah, I know.
I'm pretending.
We literally... I told you, not knowing that you didn't realize that, because I was like, everyone knows that her and David Beckham
I had no idea that was Victoria Beckham.
They're like
the whole
world's
time.
most beautiful couple.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you know, she's like married to David Beckham, and you were like, huh? You were like, wait.
Yeah, no, I really had no idea.
Yeah, so I'm sad I spoiled that.
But it
for
made
you.
a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
But she's big in the fashion industry. She has her own fashion and beauty lines. And like her kids are like well known, Brooklyn. I don't know what the other ones names are.
I don't keep up with. I don't.
I feel like media. I feel like media keeps up with Victoria and her family the most.
Gotcha.
Because of just like her and her husband are such high status. Not to say that the others aren't. So Mel B, or Scary Spice, has been on various reality TV shows like The Masked Singer, Dancing with the Stars. She had her own reality show for a little bit.
Wow.
And she was a judge on America's Got Talent.
Oh, okay.
I did not know she has a daughter with Eddie Murphy.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
She has kids with a few different famous people, but Eddie Murphy was the one that like stood out. I was like, what? I didn't know that. Wow.
Okay.
So Emma, or Baby Spice, competed on a show called Strictly Come Dancing. She judged a show called Dancing on Ice, and she's hosted the Great American Baking Show. She also wrote a book.
Wait. She hosted the Great American Baking Show? Not the Great British Baking Show.
Not Great British Baking
Great
Show.
American Baking Show.
Yep.
A British person. But with American contestants.
Yep.
Baking.
Yep.
Show.
Yep.
Got it.
Both her and Mel B were on a recent season of The Circle, and I loved them on that show. It was great. And last, Mel C, or Sporty Spice. I feel like Mel C is like the most like under the radar Spice Girl in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently she's like one of the most successful female artists in the UK ever.
What?
I know. That's what
like
I read.
Musical artists?
Yeah. So she founded her own record label. She acted in a musical called Blood Brothers. She was on Dancing with the Stars, or was casted to be on Dancing with the Stars in 2021. I don't know if that season actually, because that's like right when the pandemic hit. So I don't know if that actually came.
Everybody's been on Dancing with the Stars at this point.
Yeah. And she recently released an album in 2022.
You know, I mean, like when she first came on screen, I was like, "Oh, is that Lady Gaga?"
Yeah, I was like, "No."
She low key kind of like looks like Lady Gaga, sounds a little bit like Lady Gaga. She just got slight Lady Gaga energy, except like not at all, really. But like, I don't know, something there. And so I guess it doesn't surprise me that she was very successful.
Yeah, I do think she has maybe some of the strongest vocals of the group.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so that's what they're all up to.
Wow, Spice Girl. Thank you for that rundown. Now, the next time that ever comes up in conversation, I'm fully educated. I know everything.
Did you know Victoria Beckham's married to David Beckham? Everyone's gonna be like, yes.
That's not what I meant.
That's funny.
Well, right on.
Yeah.
Any other fun tidbits?
Nope. That's all I have. I'm glad you watched this with me. I love the Spice Girls. They're such a fun time. I love their accents. I just love everything about them.
Well, I'm looking forward to watching Barbie next weekend. Yeah. And this felt like the proper warm up to that.
Definitely. I feel like it was a good one too, because there's also a lot of British actors in Barbie.
Yeah.
And there's a show that I used to watch called My Mad Fat Diary. Shout outs to those who know that show, because I feel like very few Americans know what that show is. But there's like actresses from and actually the woman who was in the Spice World movie, who was like the assistant to the manager. She plays the mom in My Mad Fat Diary. And I absolutely love her. Like, I love her as an actress. But yeah, like, just like, there's people from that show in the Barbie movie. There's people from Sex Education in the Barbie movie. Like, I feel like the cast is so British, which is so interesting.
Well, I mean, yeah, you'd be surprised which actors that are popular today are actually British, but do American accents in like everything that they're in. But what was I gonna say? You wanted me to assign you a comedy for this coming week, and I was stuck between two comedies. But after watching this, one of those two comedies is a bit more British leaning, and so after watching this, that kind of pushed me towards like, oh, I'll do that. This feels like I'm in a British mood.
Yeah. British entertainment can be pretty good.
Yeah. The movie's not actually British, but we can get into that later.
Got you. But yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, cool.
Moving on. All right. So I was assigned a movie called Memento, which I struggled to say earlier today.
Memento, not Momento.
I know.
Memento. Memento Mori.
Yeah. What year did this come out? 2001?
So Amazon said 2001. IMDb says 2000. So
okay,
I'm gonna go with 2000.
Early 2000s. Yeah. I don't want to spoil this movie for anyone, so I'm going to give a very high level summary, and I don't even know if I would consider it a summary.
Yeah.
It's more so talking about the structure of the film.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. Yeah. Like, just what's it about?
Yeah.
And how is it structured, and why do you think people should watch it? If that's how you feel. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So Memento is about a guy named Leonard who has the goal to avenge his dead wife by killing her attacker, who had attacked both her and him one evening when they were asleep. And what makes this goal really challenging is that because he was also attacked, he suffers from short-term memory loss. And so he can only remember up until the event of when they got attacked and cannot remember any new information. And so in order to kind of keep track of important information as he works on this goal to avenge his dead wife, he has to basically take Polaroids, write himself lots of notes, and he gets lots of tattoos of this information that he wants to be able to see once it like kind of wipes from his memory. So that's kind of like the big overview of what the plot is. In terms of structure, so the story's basically set up to where we start with the conclusion, like the concluding event, and kind of work our way backwards to figure out how did we get there, which is really, really interesting. And I don't think I've ever seen a movie do this.
No.
And it's so let me get into my thoughts about this. I thought this movie was fantastic.
Sweet.
I loved this movie. I wrote down like this is definitely in my top 5 picks that you've ever given me.
Yeah.
Because it was just so different. It was so unique. It was like mind bending. It was I was confused, but like once I understood the way the structure was happening, once I started to realize, oh, we keep going back and back and back and back and back.
Yeah.
Like we keep backtracking. I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Now I can kind of follow it, even though it's still tricky to follow. And I'm very curious about like the facts that you found, because like I was like, oh, I mean, I feel like obviously this was done. It was told in this way intentionally.
Yeah.
Why I thought it was told this way was like, I was thinking like, okay, it kind of mimics like lapses in memory. And what you do when you like, let's say you forget something, you lose your keys. What do? You backtrack, you retrace your steps, you keep going back until it makes it clear where your keys are. And that's exactly what you do, or what he does, what this movie does in terms of like showing the narrative is it keeps backtracking you of like, okay, this thing happened. Well, how did that happen? Why did that occur? Okay, boom. here's what happened right before it. Now let's go back.
Yeah.
Now let's go back. And like, let's keep flip-flopping and keep like adding on more details of what happened before each event. And it was just like, it was so genius. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah. And there's all these little things. Like at one point we were watching a scene where like some of the characters had like, you know, bumps and bruises on their faces, and you're like, why do they have bumps and bruises?
Yeah.
And I was like, I think we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
And you know, you get that payoff like later on. You're like, initially you're like, what's that about? And then later on you see the context for what brought that upon that character, and it's like, oh
yeah. And there's an element of mystery because you know that his short-term memory, like he like doesn't really have a short-term memory. He forgets a lot of information. From the start, you're kind of skeptical of everyone who interacts with him because you're like, okay, he can't remember. How do we know that what he wrote down is factual?
Right.
Like, how do we know people's intentions? Because he tells them that he like has really bad short-term memory.
Right.
And so the whole time you're just like not sure of characters. And as you keep backtracking, you keep kind of flip-flopping. You're like, okay, like this person's, they seem to be who he thinks they are. Yeah. And then you're like, but are they?
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like the whole time you're trying to figure out what's everyone's intention.
Yeah.
And what's his intention. Like, you just don't know.
And all he's got to go on, every single time his memory resets, all he's got to go on is whatever he's written down. Yeah. And so like big things will happen and he'll be like, oh my gosh, I got to write this down. And sometimes he doesn't. And that's like, that just ends up, you know what the consequences of him not writing that down are already because the movie is telling you the events in reverse. Yeah. And it's great.
And it's even more stressful because sometimes things are written down, but he hasn't looked at it yet. Yeah. And so then like there'll be moments where he's doing something and then he looks at a note and he's like, oh no. Yeah. And it's like,
he'll have something and it's like written down. He's like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess I'm supposed to go do that. And then you get the context for like why that was written down later and you're like, oh, maybe he shouldn't have. Like, oh, he went there for the completely wrong reason. You know, stuff like that.
And I'm sitting here and I'm trying to figure out, okay, I'm like, if he doesn't have this short-term memory, who's to say he didn't do this 5 times before? Like, I'm also trying to create my own timeline.
You get to that point where you're like, wait a minute, we think that like, you know, well, I don't want to say too much, but it's just you start to develop these questions. Like you kind of take everything at face value at the beginning, and then by the end, you're thinking about all these different possibilities of like, wait a minute, what about this? What about that? Yeah. And love that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was just so good. I literally we had paused the movie because I went to go make a cup of tea. That sounds so British. But I went to go make a cup of tea and my mom was like, oh, like, what are you all doing downstairs? And I was like, we're watching this movie. And like, it's really interesting. And I was like explaining to her like what we had seen so far. Not what we had seen, but like the plot as far as I knew it. And she was like, what? She was like, where is that streaming? Like, I want to watch that. And I'm like, I think my parents would love this movie. I think they would be so engaged and be like, what is going on? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a good way to describe the structure that we're talking about is like, there's like 2 stories happening, or not 2 stories, but there's kind of like
a past and present.
Yeah. It's kind of like a past and present. And it's like the past, say the past is like A, and then like the past starts at A and the present starts at like 10. And it's like the movie plays by like 10 A, 9 B, 8 C, 7 D, until they like meet. And like, so good. It's like, yeah, it's wild once you pick up on it where you're like, oh, the beginning of this scene, I'm going to need to remember the beginning of this scene because the end of the next scene is going to lead into this, and I need to pay attention. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like real good like foreshadowing moments as well. Like, especially, I don't want to say too much, but like, especially in the beginning, he like says all these things about memory, and I feel like it really sets it up for the last thing that you see before the movie's over. And just really is like, I mean, he said it himself, and like, it makes sense how this all played out.
Yeah. Anything else you'd like to say before I get into some facts?
No, I feel like if I say any more, I'm gonna like end up spoiling it.
Yeah. I don't want to spoil it.
It's just too good of a movie to like spoil it. Like,
right.
It's just something you really need to experience for yourself.
I mean, it's a movie that I think people who love movies would particularly love, because it's taking this medium that everybody knows and it's flipping it on its head and doing something different and delivering the story to you in a way you've never seen before.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever tried to recreate that, from what I said. Well, except apparently, I think it was like remade in like India or something. But like no other movie has really attempted this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just so different, and it's like, and it's part of, as you said, like it's part of the motif of the movie, like the whole thing about memory. It's about how he doesn't have memory, so the movie doesn't just take you through the story of a guy who's like, his memory resets every few minutes or anything. It's like, no, you start at the end and then you go back to, and like that's, and because like memory can be unreliable, and like it's just it uses that structuring device as a part of like furthering the story that it's telling. That it's not, I could cook up a story and start at the end and go back to the beginning, but for what, and it uses that idea fully to its advantage within the confines of the story.
I wonder too, like, one of the tattoos he has on his chest is written backwards, which makes sense because he looks in the mirror to read it.
Yeah.
But some of his other tattoos aren't that way, because he could just look down to see it.
Right.
But I wonder if there's like this like double meaning to that, of like, this movie is set up backwards, so like, I wonder if there's some sort of double meaning to that. But I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
And this is about Christopher Nolan.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We haven't said this yet. This movie was written and directed by Christopher Nolan.
Which is why you chose it.
Which is why I chose it for Oppenheimer coming out this week.
Yeah.
And because it came out in 2000, it's like one of his first movies ever.
Okay.
There's another movie he did, like Doodlebug and I think Insomnia are other movies that he's made. Okay. But it was like, in my mind, it's really like, he did Memento, and then he did Batman Begins. Okay. And then Prestige, Dark Knight, Inception, Dark Knight Rises, and then Interstellar, Dunkirk, Tenet, and now Oppenheimer.
That clarifies a lot. That was my question, was what else has he done? Because like, so many people are like so hyped about Oppenheimer because it's Christopher Nolan. Like, that's why they're excited about it. It was directed by Christopher Nolan, and like, that's what I keep hearing is Christopher Nolan. And I was like, I don't think I know who Christopher Nolan is. And so like,
what?
But wait. I just didn't know he's the director of some of those movies, which I have seen. So I didn't know really who he was. And so like, watching this movie, I was like, I understand why everyone's really excited about Oppenheimer. Like, if this is the kind of stuff he creates, that makes sense.
Christopher Nolan's the man.
Now hearing you like saying like he directed like Dark Knight and like Inception, which like, granted, of the things that you have seen or like you listed, Dark Knight's really the only one that I like absolutely loved. I've seen Inception, I've seen Interstellar. I don't quite like remember them. I understand I understand the like appeal of Inception, because that's just like also a mind-bending movie.
Yeah.
But I don't think I was ever like, oh, this is fantastic. This is like the most wonderful movie. Like, I was never one of those people. So
like, he's big on, Christopher Nolan movies are movies for people that love movies.
Yeah.
And like, they can be big in spectacle, but then also like when you go back to his early filmography and find something like Memento, and it's like flipping the conventions of storytelling on its head. It's like, all right, that's what makes him so good. Yeah,
that makes like 100% sense, and like I understand why people would get really excited about something new that he creates, because I mean, like, he has the fantastic filmography. So now I get it. Yeah. And now I'm like excited for Oppenheimer. I was not excited for Oppenheimer. I was just going because we were seeing Barbie.
Yeah.
But like now I'm like, okay, I'm interested to see how the story is told. And I can only imagine it'll be really good.
Yeah. Okay, well, some interesting facts that I've got on here. I mean, while we're praising Christopher Nolan, I can say that this movie was nominated for Best Original Screenplay and Best Editing, which make a ton of sense.
Yep.
Those two things are like what make this movie. It's rated number 55 on IMDb, top 250.
Wow.
Yeah. It's got like an 8.4 or 8.5.
It deserves a 10.
Nothing has a 10 on IMDb. It's not how that
then
works.
it deserves a 9.9.
It's everybody's voting. Okay. The highest rated movie has like a 9.1.
Well, then it deserves a 9.05.
Oh my god. The Dark Knight is like number 3 on IMDb.
The Dark Knight is I do not like Batman movies. The only Batman movie I love with my whole heart is Dark Knight.
It's a great movie.
It is.
All right. So yeah, what I think something good that we should talk about is while we're still talking about the movie, or fresh off of talking about the actual structure of the movie, is that whole idea of memory, and memory can fool you sometimes. And so some of the how each memory loop or sequence plays is that you'll see something, and then the one before it will lead into the one that you just saw, and they edit that to make it clear to you that that's like what's happening, by kind of like overlapping shots that you've already seen. Like it'll end with the beginning of the scene prior, so that it's clear to you what the movie structure is. And so some of those overlapping shots between the loops, they used the same take, and some of them they used a different take of that, what they were doing. And they did that to illustrate that like memory changes how things can be remembered. And
I love that.
Yeah, when I read that, I was like, oh, that's genius. That's smart.
That is really smart. They should like change the colors of cars or something to see if you catch
oh
it.
my gosh. Yeah, for real. That's a cool idea.
This is a tangent, but it's related. When I taught psychology, so I used to teach intro to psychology for undergraduate students. And there's this like video you can find on YouTube, and it's like this test for memory. And it's like this car accident that happens, and it was like they brought in people to identify like what color was the car that hit the other car, or like how fast was that car going, to like show like memory is not reliable.
Right.
And oftentimes people would say it was the wrong color, or like they would say it was going way faster than it actually was. And like I think they mentioned that in this movie of like, if you like memory isn't reliable, like police always say like eyewitness testimonies are like not the best thing to go off of, because people just like change information in their mind. So they could have fully changed like the color of a car, and I'm sure very few people would have caught it. Yeah. At least on their first watch.
Yeah. So there's a limited edition DVD that was released, and one of the special features on disc 2 is that it lets you watch the movie in chronological order. But in order to get to it, you have to answer multiple questions correctly and solve a puzzle.
That's dope. That's dope. I was literally thinking, I was like, I wish you could like rewind it, but like it played.
It plays chronologically. Yeah.
And so that's cool that they made that an option.
It made that an option, and it made it super hard to get to. Yeah. And it's like, I also read that you couldn't like pause or press fast forward or go back. They just made it as hard to access as possible.
That's so
you really
cool.
gotta like love the movie to get to that.
We should go on archive.org and see if it's available there.
I don't think they're gonna have that.
Oh my gosh, remember when DVDs had like 2 discs?
Yeah, for the special bonus features.
Yeah, the Finding Nemo one had games.
Yeah, gosh, good times.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else do I got in here? It was filmed in 25 days. It's filmed on a very low budget. Carrie Ann Moss, her character scenes. She's one of the major characters. The primary female character
Natalie?
of the movie. Natalie, yeah. She plays Natalie in this movie. Carrie Ann Moss was in like The Matrix. Many people know her as Trinity from The Matrix.
Yeah. I was like, her face is so familiar. I have no clue who this woman is.
Oh, yeah. She filmed her scenes in 8 days. Wow. So, yeah, it was filmed on a pretty low budget, actually.
That's amazing. I mean, if you think about it, the shots are pretty simple.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of the shots, a cinematographer had received a script and turned down doing an interview with Christopher Nolan to see if he wanted to come on as the cinematographer because he didn't understand the script. And so another guy that had worked with that cinematographer did end up being the cinematographer for this movie. And he... the original guy that was offered the job, like, he admitted, like, that was a mistake, like, I should have done it, especially because the guy that did end up doing it, like, later admitted, like, he didn't understand the script either.
I was just gonna say that. I was like, does it matter if you understand the script? Like,
right,
just do it, because you never know like what can come of it.
Right. So, which really worked out in his favor, because the guy that did end up shooting this movie went on to make 6 movies with Christopher Nolan after that. So
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, once you're in, like, just get in.
Yeah.
Because then you can establish a relationship with a person, especially a director, establish a relationship with them, and then they'll want to use you for everything they do.
Yeah, I mean, I think these guys were like relatively established already. So, I think it wasn't like I need to do this to do anything. I think he was being a bit picky. He can be selective. He was being selective in that moment. But he was like, yeah, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have done that.
That's like, if I were to work in the industry, that'd be my biggest fear, is that I would turn down something and then it becomes like the biggest thing ever. Yeah. Like a person who turned down like working on Avatar or something. Right. And it's like,
James Cameron, who?
Yeah. I know. It's like, no, what did I do?
Yeah. All right, what else do I have in here? So it's considered I quote, considered culturally, historically, or aesthetically, end quote, significant by the U.S. Library of Congress and selected for preservation in the National Film Registry in 2017, and it's the first non-documentary film of the 2000s to be preserved.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought that was really...
That's amazing.
That's interesting, yeah. It makes me wonder, like, what else is preserved in the National Film Registry? Is that like...
It's like Nutty Professor.
All the best movies. Is that like if America just like disappears one day, but we like find like say the world ends or something, and is that what like the National Registry is for? Like, what's the point of...
How would we access that if the world ended?
Well, that's the point. It's like it's making me think about, like, how NASA sent out this, like, not satellite, but this like small ship. It sent this thing into space. And it has like a picture of like a human. They specifically put things in there that
like a time capsule.
Like if alien life finds it, it's supposed to be representative of like these are what humans are.
Would we want them to find it?
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's who knows what kind of life is out there. So it could be like billions and billions of years, and like somebody finds it. Some alien civilization finds it, and it's like, who were the humans? This? Yeah. They find that, and it's like representative of like, this is what the humans were all about.
I wonder how much that costs.
Yeah, fair enough. But that's what this fact made me think of. Like, is this supposed to be like if the world ended, but it's like, oh hey, the National Film Registry, like this is the preservation of like what our society was in film and entertainment. Is that the point?
Maybe it's just like a I don't know. Let's say,
the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That, or like technology advances so much that like we kind of forget where things started, maybe, and it's like, here's a like list of like all the best things from
so that's what I'm saying. Periods. Like, do I need to be going through the National Film Registry and being like, oh, that's where all the good stuff is listed, you know?
Maybe. I mean, I'd be curious to see what's in there, what's worthy of being, because they're not actually gonna put anything in there, you know?
Right.
So it's like, what's considered
culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. Yeah.
Like, I'm sure like Wizard of Oz is probably listed in there, you know?
Yeah, you're probably right. Right. Yeah. All right. Well, the only other fact I have on this movie is that there's a lot of like black and white scenes that take place in the past, and a lot of those were improvised. So like a lot of them are Guy Pearce, Leonard, kind of like on the phone with somebody, and we don't know who that is. And he is improvising a lot of that time. Wow. And they made it make sense in the editing.
I was going to say, I would not improvise, because it's so critical what you say, because that sets up.
Well, they did that on purpose, because then it made it feel more like organic and like playing, again, into I think Christopher Nolan had some fancy schmancy explanation on like why they did that and why it supports the theme of the movie and all that. But there's also like, there are other black and white scenes of some characters that are in this like story that Leonard is telling. And those characters, their scenes are also like mostly improvised. Like they had a structure of like what was going on in the scene, but their lines and dialogue were mostly improvised, because originally those scenes were just meant to have voiceover put over them. So they just needed them to be saying anything. But that's what ended up like what they were saying actually ended up making it into the movie. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's everything I had.
Wow. What a good pick.
Thanks.
I gotta admit, I was low-key like,
what's this about to be?
Yeah. I was like, this is gonna be boring. I don't know.
I knew. I was like, this is a good movie. Like, people, you look at like, oh, Memento, like, what is that? Some guy looking for his dead wife. Like, okay, I've seen that a million times. But like,
Well, I didn't even know it was that. Like, I had no idea what this was going to be. And I don't know. I just like was blown away.
Good.
As soon as I got it, I was like, I got it. I need to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Very good pick.
Well, check it out. Definitely. Dear listener, if that sounds interesting to you, you're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. So then should we just go ahead and get into next week's assignments? I mean, we're looking forward to Barbenheimer next week. Maybe we'll give some thoughts on that. Yeah. We just saw, actually, we didn't even talk about this. We just saw Mission Impossible like yesterday. Solid. It was good. Yeah. Yeah. Anything you want? I mean, you said you liked it more than you liked Fallout, so.
I'm sorry, I just burped. Yes. I did like it more than I liked Fallout, which I watched last week for our assignments. Because, well, I don't. It's new. I don't want to say anything about it. But I personally,
you just liked it more.
Yeah, I personally liked it a little bit more.
Right on.
I still thought it was corny. Like, I thought the plot was corny, but you know.
I think it's. I still think it was a solid entry in the Mission Impossible franchise. I think I like the last one more personally. But, so we're not in agreement on that, but. Anyway, happy to be going back to the movies next weekend for a double feature.
I can't
with
wait.
Barbie and Oppenheimer. That's gonna be a lot of fun. And you got a whole outfit coming.
I did. It's still a comfy outfit. It's nothing too fancy schmancy.
Well, hopefully they fix the AC in the theater when we go this time, because
honestly, it wasn't terrible.
It wasn't that bad, but I was sticking to my chair.
Yeah, it was a little
There was like a
stuffy.
sign when we went into the theater that was like, hey, theaters 7 and 8, the AC is broken. We were like, fingers crossed that that's not us. It was us. Yeah.
It was us. Luckily, I mean, it wasn't a full theater. I think
Right.
with all those, if it was a full theater, I'd be like,
yeah,
I
like
can't.
if I'm seeing Oppenheimer in that theater next week on the biggest screen possible.
Maybe it adds to the effect.
What, you're getting all hot?
You're all hot and sweaty.
Yeah. Whoa.
It's like a 4D theater.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Little did they know, that they planned that.
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, they gave the option of like, if you're uncomfortable, we will happily give you a refund.
Oh,
but
it said that?
Really,
Oh,
yeah, that's what the sign said.
I was considering being a difficult customer and being
No, the sign was like, we totally understand this is a super inconvenient. We will happily give you a refund if you don't want to be there.
Okay, that's good.
But yeah, to me it wasn't. I mean, I tend to like be cold anyway. Like I'm always just a cold person, so I was pretty comfortable.
All right, right on.
Okay.
Anyway, so looking forward to that, and it was fun to do a themed episode like that.
Yeah.
So next week, no theme, just
Just
picks. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first, since I've been letting you go first for the past few ones.
All right.
So I wanted to give you something that's not quite horror, but very stressful. And that is the movie Frozen, not the Disney animation, but a 2010 movie about people stuck on a ski lift.
Oh, the people stuck on a ski lift movie.
Yeah.
You've mentioned this before.
I have.
Oh, fun.
I was like, I want to give something a little scary.
Okay, I did not see this coming. Very cool. All right, cool. Solid.
I'm very interested to see how it is, because like I have not seen this movie in a really long time, since I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if it's going to be like the same quality of like open water.
Yeah, no, that's a little bit of what I'm expecting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm expecting like B movie vibes from it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that. Honestly.
I don't quite remember it, so I'm excited.
Okay, well, for my pick, solid pick. For my pick, you asked me to give you a comedy. As I mentioned earlier in the episode, I was flip-flopping between two things. I do want to give you the other thing eventually, because it's kind of like an early 2000s like teen comedy that I don't think you've seen before. Mm-hmm. So I will assign you that at some point. But as you mentioned, there was some Britishness to this whole Spice Girls thing. It just seems like the right time. I'm giving you Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I have not seen a full Austin Powers movie. I've seen like a clip of Beyonce.
Yeah. Beyonce is in the third one.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm hoping that by watching the first one, that like one day we'll just kind of like randomly watch the other two, because it's been a while since I've seen them, and like I grew up watching all of them. Yeah. And I thought they were like the funniest thing.
It's like kind of surprising to me that I still have not seen it, because they're such a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Like everybody, like I remember everybody quoting like lines from the movie, and I was just like, I just can't get myself to sit down and watch it.
And they're silly, they're dumb.
Yeah.
And it like pokes fun. If you know your James Bond stuff enough, it really pokes fun at that stuff. Yeah. And they're just fun and stupid.
No, I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. And it's like Mike SNL.
Myers. Yeah. I like him, so I'm very excited for it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so next week we have Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, and Frozen, not the Disney movie.
They're such starkly different movies.
I love that. That's what's up. Yeah.
I love it.
All right, we'll see you then.
Right, bye.
I hope you have a great week. Enjoy Barbenheimer. Bye.